Standard of living crashing down in unretirement and early retirement life? This is wrong. Hello and welcome to our Retire Early Life. We've been reading more and more about how inflation is causing financial havoc for millions of Americans. In fact, recent reports are saying that many retirees are going back to work. They're calling it unretirement. Some reports are saying that 40% of Americans are struggling to pay their bills. Just wait for winter to come and they have to pay an enormous electric or gas bill. It seems almost unbelievable that almost half of the retirement segment can't retire and travel and enjoy their life in their later years. We've said it many times before on this channel, but this is just wrong. The narrative goes something like this. Standard of living in grave danger. Grave danger? Really? Who are they talking to? I mean, we're not saying that some folks, maybe even a lot of folks, are not having a difficult time, but when they talk about standards, what are they going by? Are they talking about the Keep Up with the Joneses standard of living, where most folks in that group are working to pay the bank back? Is it those standards? Look, we don't like to sound like a leaky faucet, but when you get yourself committed to a 30-year mortgage, what are all the things that can happen in that time? Even 15 to 20-year loan is a long time. Lots of things can happen to usurp your ability to pay off that loan or to be severely burdened by a huge mortgage payment and car payments. But let's get back to standard of living. Standard of living is so subjective according to the individual, couple, or family. For example, someone can bring in $45,000 a year, has a nice home and car paid off, knows the skill of industriousness, and has no debt. That person is going to have a pretty good standard of living in the USA. And then you have the folks who say they can't get by on $100,000 a year. But then you get to talking to that person and you find out they're paying off medical debt, home debt, car debt, and yes, their standard of living is in grave danger. It just means you need to tighten up the reins somewhere in your spending habits and learn to be more industrious for your own household. I mean, Frank and I, we're living on a small Social Security budget, and we're not losing any material comforts or favorite foods or anything like that. But again, we're not in debt. We live at or below our financial means, and we own our home and vehicle, free and clear, of course. Living within your financial resources means that we ensure that we'll never be homeless or living in a car or van or anything extreme like that. We could go get a loan and live like the Joneses too, but we don't want to do that. That's risky and not even who we are. That is a fake standard of living. It's not real. People are having so many difficulties because they're in debt. Did you know that not owing money to institutions keeps your living costs down by thousands and thousands of dollars? We're just showing you the other side. Debt burdens people greatly, and that is a fact. The sad truth is, most Americans can't buy a home unless they heap on a tremendous burden of a mortgage. And folks, that's just wrong. The housing market has gotten way out of reach for young people just starting out, too. Now, we made a previous video talking about how in the 50s and 60s, homes were only a couple $1,000s more than the yearly take-home pay. And so mortgage payments were only 1 or 2 years, compared to 30-year loans with piles of interest. We've always said everyone can buy a home if you look at the alternative ways, such as what we did. Buy a livable fixer on the cheap. They're out there, but you have to be on top of the game. Although we're also reading that about half of Americans have less than $1,000 saved up and are pretty much living paycheck to paycheck and can't even buy a cheap old home under $10,000. This is because of lack of budgeting skills and most likely spending most of what you make and having debt. That's why we can't seem to get ahead. Debt is a standard of living killer. However, you still have other alternatives, such as you can find a rent-to-own, which is basically like a mortgage, but the contract is between you and the seller, not you and the bank, and there won't be any unnecessary interest on the home. These homes are older and they need some work. Some of them need a lot of work, but usually they are livable. If you're a fix-it person, couple, or family, it might do you well to look into something like this so you can get out of the atrocious rental market. Even if you're not already a fix-it person, you can resolve to do whatever it takes to become one, like we did. How it works is you pay off the home each month through a lease payment of whatever you and the seller agree upon in the contract. Now, sometimes they ask for a small down payment, but not much. Your monthly lease goes towards the price of the home, whatever it is. And so here are a few examples of rent-to-own homes I found just today on Zillow. One of the latest reports states that many Americans are cutting back on leisure activities to cope with the inflated cost of living. We should consider to start enjoying alternative entertainment such as biking, hiking, and walking rather than sports games, travel, and eating out in restaurants. That's one thing about the USA. Just about everywhere you go is free entertainment if you like being out in nature. The U.S. is famous for its beaches, its state parks, national parks, bike trails, walking and hiking trails, and they're mostly free or just a few bucks for entry into the parks. We just think there is just too much copy and paste narratives out there trying to get people to feel bad about their living standards. We can sit here and complain about our life, or we can keep on going and figure out ways to get out of debt sooner by putting on our smart frugal hat and learning to improve our standard of living through frugality and industriousness, and without taking a second or third job. Did you know that second jobs actually keep you so busy that you don't have time to be industrious for your own household and well-being? We say don't get a second job, start a micro business instead. Do whatever you know how to do and be the boss of your own enterprise, no matter how humble the beginnings. Take control of your ship and navigate it to safety. Yes, there are some rough waters out there, but the possibilities of changing what you don't like about your life are endless if you just start looking outside of the normal ways that people do things. You see, that's what got people into this mess in the first place, trying to have this fake standard of living called keeping up with your neighbors. What about just keeping up with yourself? Will that work? By golly, we think it will. When you keep up with yourself, not worrying about what other people are doing, but just living and enjoying your life, you will come to understand that the standard of living thing was all a big hoax to begin with, to keep people in debt and working like dogs to pay off that debt until their late retirement, because that's what most people do. Just something to think about. Okay? Take care, everyone. Until next time, be blessed and bye-bye.